I would like to call this special school board meeting of July 26, 2022 to order. The time is 5:07. The purpose of today's meeting is to hold a public hearing to consider the adoption of the 2022-2023 tentative millage rates and the 2022-2023 tentative budget. At this time, I request that all cellular telephones be put in the silent mode. I would like to take this opportunity to remind the members of the public of the district's mission, which is to ensure that each student achieves his or her highest personal potential and the district vision to be a world-class school system. Today's agenda includes presentation of percent of increase, decrease, rollback rates, proposed millage, budget overviews, proposed FY23 tentative budget, public hearing on proposed millage rates and tentative budget, public comments, adoption of the required local effort millage, basic discretionary millage, capital outlay millage, resolution determining revenues and millage, and resolutions adopting the tentative millage rates for fiscal year 2022-2023, FY23 tentative budget and related resolutions adopting the tentative budget, acceptance of the 2022 certification of taxable value, schedule of the final budget public hearing, comments from the board members, board attorney, and superintendent. Board members, is there a motion to adopt the agenda as presented?
I'll move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Second. And seconded by Ms. Giovanelli. Thank you very much. And please record your votes.
Wow. I didn't get to sign in.
Ms. Thomas, they have to sign in, correct?
Correct. Thank you. Okay.
In the wrong meeting.
All right. There we go.
I'm affirmative. It's telling me that authentication is not on. So my answer is yes.
Did you want to, Ms. Gittens?
Like I said, you can go ahead and take my vote. But.
So 7-0. Who are you waiting for?
Yeah.
Ms. Fisher?
It didn't come up. I just signed in.
Okay. How do you vote, Ms. Fisher?
Aye.
That's all right.
Ms. Thomas, I can't see the.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you so much. 7-0 motion passes. I will now turn this meeting over to Dr. Christopher Bernier, Superintendent, Dr. Amy Desimore, Chief Financial Officer. Dr. Bernier?
Madam Chair, members of the board, first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to enter into the first process with the tentative budget and in working towards a balanced budget for this coming school year. It's always a great opportunity. Budget seasons are always full of opportunity, but they're also full of difficult decisions. You've all had an opportunity from the dais to welcome back Amy. This is my opportunity. I smile, and I know she's smiling in return because you can see it in Amy's eyes. I knew from afar, as soon as I saw the financial reports that I used during my interview to handle some of your financial questions, that I knew this particular organization was in very capable hands. And when, upon meeting her, the depth of that relationship only grew because not only she is a competent chief financial officer who understands the nuances of balancing and creating a workable budget for a school district, but she also happens to be an amazing human being at the same time. And we are so glad to have her back working with us. And we are all going to encourage her tomorrow morning to remain at home a little bit longer and come to our office while the rest of us will all be out waving in the heat, welcoming our newest teachers. I'm trying to convince Ms. Desimore to stay home for that period of time. So any encouragement you can provide during this presentation, I would sincerely appreciate. I told you I would call in the extra troops.
You should do a consensus.
There it is, Amy, you're
Stay
done.
home.
So we look forward to Amy's presentation tonight, and again, this is your first look as we look towards this coming school year and an opportunity to look at our budget and our budget agenda. I'll turn it over to Amy in her capable hands to take you through the presentation.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Bernier. Message received loud and clear from the superintendent and the board. Do want to thank you for being here today. Thank you so much for that warm welcome, and I truly appreciate it, and I'm very happy to be here. I'm here by myself. Ms. Letcher was not able to be here today, but I do want to publicly thank her and the rest of the budget staff who worked so hard putting the information together, and I truly appreciate all the work that's been done to bring us to today. So this hearing is the first of 2 public hearings required under Florida statutes to give the public an opportunity to provide input into the proposed millage levy and the budget for this fiscal year. The superintendent submitted his proposed tentative budget to the board on July 22nd. This hearing was advertised in the news press on July 23rd. The second and final budget public hearing by your approval today will be held on Wednesday, September 7th at 5:05 p.m. here in our boardroom, and the notice of that meeting to the public will be through a direct mailing from the property appraiser's office. That mail document is known as the Truth in Millage Notice, or the TRIM notice, and is sent as is required by law. So as outlined in TRIM requirements, we must first discuss the millage rollback rate. The rollback rate is the millage which, when applied to the current year's tax roll, net of adjustments for new growth, would produce the same dollars as received in the previous year. The calculated rollback rate for this year is 4.7445 mils. And as you see here, this is just an illustration of what our millages have been for the past several years, from FY11 on to FY23. You see the progression of that millage rate, and you'll see that there definitely is a connection between what happens with the tax roll and what happens with the millage rate. The proposed millage rate for the 2022-23 school year is 5.557 mils, which is a decrease of 0.334 mils from the 2021-2022 millage rate of 5.81, and an increase from the rollback rate of 17.13%. So as we go back and discuss just a little bit about the millage rates that you see, again, for the 2023 year, this is showing our new millage rate, or new proposed millage rate of 5.557. You'll see that is a slight decrease from the previous year. That will usually happen in Florida the way that our FEFP program is. Oops, sorry, can you not hear me well? Okay, hear me better, hopefully. In Florida, the way our FEFP, or the Florida Education Finance Program, is structured, typically when you see your tax roll go up, you will see your millage rate go down in response to that, and you can see that progression over the past several years, how that has happened. In addition, so on top of that, we'll talk about here this tax roll history, and you'll see for the past several years, at least since 2014, how that tax roll has progressively gone up, and so that millage rate along with that has kind of consistently gone down within those years. The FY23 tax value, as noted here, is $133.9 billion, and that does represent a sizable increase, 27.81% increase from last year's tax roll. So one of the things that we think is important for taxpayers to understand is, so what effect will that have on me and what I pay in my property taxes this year, based on this tax roll and this millage rate, because that is kind of how the rubber meets the road for our taxpayers. So we put several different scenarios on here. Of course, every homeowner's scenario can be different, but what we tried to illustrate here is what happens to someone whose property value increased, or whose taxable value increased 27.81%, which was the amount that the tax roll, or the percentage rate that the tax roll increased for this year. And then what happens to someone whose taxable value increases by 3%, which is what happens under Save Our Homes. So in that particular scenario, and I'm just taking someone whose taxable value last year was $200,000, if their taxable value on their home increased by 27.81%, then their new taxable value would be $255,620. And under that, they would see a difference of about $242 on their property taxes for this school year, or for this property value year. For those who are under Save Our Homes in the 3%, and we'll take that same $200,000 value, if your taxable value last year was $200,000 and it increases by 3%, then your new taxable value would be $206,000. But you'll see there that there is a decrease in tax, in property tax of about $25 in that scenario. All of our homeowners could be these scenarios or anywhere above or below in between that, but this is kind of a depiction of a couple of scenarios and what the impact to our taxpayers would look like under these given scenarios that are listed here. The new millage rate will generate about $121.8 million more than the previous year because of the increase in the tax roll. The total proposed millage levy is as follows. Required local effort is a proposed millage rate of 3.309 with a proposed amount to be raised of $425,410,802. The basic discretionary rate is proposed at 0.748 mils with a proposed amount to be raised of $96,164,183. Capital outlay millage proposed at 1.5 mils with a proposed amount to be raised of $192,842,612 for an overall total millage proposed of 5.557 with a total proposed amount to be raised of $714,417,597. So as outlined in the superintendent's proposed tentative budget to you on July 22nd, the total proposed 2022-2023 budget for all funds is $2,135,684,823. The tentative budget, and that's broken down in each of the different funds as you see illustrated here. The tentative budget explains each of our required funds, and we will discuss each of those in a little bit of detail here. So for our public's sake and those that are watching today, each budget fund is earmarked for specific purposes. We have the general fund, which is the largest fund that really is for the education of students and the general operating expenses of the district. You've got the debt service fund, which is specifically for the mortgage payment, the payment of the debt for the school district. You've got our capital fund, which is used to build buildings, buy equipment, and provide maintenance services across the district. Our food service fund supports the breakfast and lunch program for all students. Our special revenue fund are all federal funds that must be used for the specific purposes that are outlined in the grants, and there are various grants within our special revenue funds. And then internal services specifically earmarked the area that accounts for the insurance costs of the district, both health insurance and property and casualty type insurance. So each of our funds are earmarked for those very specific purposes. And all things that happen in those funds are accounted for and made sure that only those things for those specific purposes go down within those funds. So let's talk a little bit about our general fund, which is our major source of revenue for the district's daily operations. And it is now at about $1 billion, and that's 49% of our total budget. And it is structured to support just shy of 100,000 students. So we are hitting what feels like a very big benchmark in terms of actually getting to 100,000 students. And even though we are specifically budgeted for 99,900 students, I'm going to make a bold prediction that we just might hit 100,000 this school year. So that focus of the general fund, as we built our budget, and I also want to shout out and thank all of our district leadership that worked with us in terms of trying to structure the budget, focus on our priorities, and make some tough decisions in terms of putting this budget together. We want to make sure that we're focusing on the putting continued resources towards our targeted initiatives. So first and foremost are our resources to the classroom. That is the major and the main focus of the general fund. Our reading initiatives at the elementary level, and continuing our additional 30 minutes at select elementary and middle schools to try to maximize student learning and student achievement. Also, a focus on the whole child, and that is something that our academic services folks have been in front of the board and talked about very often, not just over the past 2 years, but especially over the past 2 years in terms of a focus on mental wellness, our English language learners, the students that we have that are in need of additional interventions and supports, and of course, especially everything we've been through over the last couple years with COVID, a recapture of learning losses that have happened throughout the district. So a major focus within the general fund of keeping our resources laser focused on these initiatives. And in addition to that, a focus on employee retention. We are people intensive as a school district, and all of these initiatives that I just listed up above don't happen without a quality staff that can oversee, run, and monitor these initiatives. So a focus on our employee retention as well. A little bit about the Florida Education Finance Program, or FEFP, as you will hear us refer to it as. It's a major funding mechanism for school districts in the state of Florida. This year, we receive, or are projected to receive, $853.2 million in total FEFP revenue, and that is a combination of both local tax revenue and revenue from the state for a total of $853.2 million. That's a $70 million increase from the previous year, but there are several things that account for that $70 million increase. Of course, that increase in students is one of those that account for the increase, but also there are earmarked at this point approximately $23.4 million that we anticipate going towards family empowerment scholarships, and that is an increase from the year before. We've got an $8.5 million increase in the teacher salary increase allocation, and that is specifically to provide for the state mandated minimum salary of teachers, the maintenance of that minimum salary, and also for if you have any leftover funds for additional compensation for teachers. And also earmarked in there is a requirement that the district move to a $15 an hour minimum hourly rate for any employees that are underneath that hourly rate at this point. So state mandated that by October, we will go to that $15 an hour minimum requirement for any staff that may be below that. And so the budget is structured in order to be able to accommodate that requirement as well, which hopefully will also help us with our employee retention that we talked about just moments ago. So this FEFP allocation breaks down to about $8,540 per FTE, and that includes a base student allocation of $4,587.40. That's a $214 increase in the BSA, and this FEFP, as I said, is structured part state funds, part local funds. It is 39% state funded. So 39% of that $853 million is coming from the state. The rest are coming from our local property tax dollars, which of course is what these millages that we're asking for approval from support. Little breakdown of our operating revenues. So this is just in the general fund, keep in mind. So specifically for the general fund, almost 63% of that comes from local dollars, mostly property taxes, as we discussed before. About 37% of that from the state level, then a very, very small sliver, less than 1%, coming from federal funds. And this is specifically for the general fund. Most of our general funds are budgeted in another fund, that special revenue fund that we discussed earlier. And just a little pie, a picture on where those funds go or where they are budgeted at this point in time. So as you would expect, the vast majority of these funds budgeted for instruction and direct school expenses. And then you see where the rest of the percentages across the general fund budget break down at this time. Just to have a conversation about our contingencies and reserves, there is a page in the budget book that is specifically targeted towards listing the contingency and reserves that we have in the budget at this time. So that's there as part of your backup to be able to look at. Of course, our reserves protect the district's financial position so that we are in a position to be able to handle any unexpected or unforeseen circumstances as they arise or if they arise throughout the year. By state statute, we have to make sure that we maintain at least 3% of our new revenue in contingency, lest we risk supervision by the state. So you'll see that 3% new revenue contingency, which for us constitutes $26.7 million this year, and that is specifically earmarked as a reserve and is located on that page in the tentative budget book that breaks down the reserves. And then we've got $14.6 million also that's earmarked for different things, either future reductions or needs. We have some reductions that we might get from after state revenues are updated. And in fact, when we received what they call the second calculation, just in the middle of July, we received that information from the state, the second calculation of the FEFP on July 19th. And we already did receive a proration from the state of about $1.2 million. So in other words, the original FEFP number promised us $853.2. Based on the recalculations that the state did already in the second calculation, which like I said, we just received a few days ago, they've already prorated our funds $1.2 million. Because basically the state is saying, well, they don't have, you know, the funds to be able to necessarily support everything that's out there in the FEFP right now. And we expect that we might receive more prorations as the year goes on. So that's the state of affairs, but that's part of the reason why we set aside those contingencies and those reserves in order to be able to structure that. We also set aside for a school voucher increase. As I mentioned earlier, the $23.4 million that we've set aside has already been reduced in the second calculation, but we do expect that we'll have more reduction coming for that as people might choose into those programs. And so we've got adjustments set for those as well, or reserves set aside to be able to handle that particular instance as well. So just always trying to position the district, of course, to drive our resources to the classroom and other areas where we feel that we need them, but also making sure that we're protecting the district's financial position. So in the case where we may have to come up with unexpected funds in order to cover different things like prorations or like additional costs to our family empowerment scholarships or anything else, or in FTE shortfall, we don't get as many students as they project us to receive, then we're in a position to be able to provide for that reduction. Our food service budget currently is at $69.9 million. That does include breakfast and lunch for every child at no additional cost to the parent. So that is in, or part of what is called our community eligibility program. It's in effect for all schools in the upcoming school year. So we still continue to qualify for all schools to be under that umbrella for this year and for several years moving forward. And we believe it is a good thing in order to make sure that every student receives breakfast and lunch, and in some cases where we offer it, dinner or supper at no additional cost to the parents. Special revenue, that is our fund where we have all of our federal grants. Title I, IDEA, and others, but Title I, IDEA are some of our larger ones in there, and also that's where you'll find ESSER as well. The budget for that is currently at $58.9 million, and that budget will continue to increase as grants are received. We don't typically budget for them until we receive the grant approval, so you'll see between now and the final budget, that number should become significantly larger as we get the grant approvals in and put them specifically into the budget at that point. Our capital fund is also at $700.3 million. So local property tax, sales tax are the most substantial sources of revenue that we have in there. But then we also have impact fees that are, continue to rise as well with the action or the activity that we have in the community at this point. Our major focus in there, of course, is maintenance and construction across the district. So safety and security upgrades, our maintenance renovation of our existing buildings, technology, and then of course our building plan across the district to ensure that we have enough seats to accommodate the expected 100,000 students that we have for this year. So at this point, our 5-year plan does include the new schools that you see listed here. And then in addition to those, 2 rebuilds, 5 remodels, and a pre-K center. We continue to do some pretty significant work on our capital plan to make sure that we are in alignment with all of the latest data that we have in terms of growth and where that's going to be. So we know that we have an appropriate number of new schools on here, and also continuing to analyze all of our maintenance data of existing schools across the district so that those things that most urgently need to be addressed across all schools based on the evaluation of the condition of each of our facilities, that we have adequately reflected those within the capital plan. So you will continue to hear additional information about that, and at some point we'll come forward with a specific brief of the capital plan so we can break that down just a little bit further as well. And excuse me, the debt service fund currently budgeted at $85.8 million, and this is where we pay the principal and interest payments of the district. So all of that action takes place inside of the debt service funds. As you see here, our statutory debt service usage and our recommended debt service usage is very low at this point. So if you recall, now this is only reflective of the debt service that we are paying with our capital outlay millage, or the 1.5 mils. So remember, by statute, we can only spend up to 75% of those 1.5 mils on debt service. Right now, we're only at 12, or budgeted for 12.2% of that total capacity. And then the recommended debt service usage, the board has always said, we don't want to go to 50%, to 75%, we want to stay more at 50% of the usage of our 1.5 capital mills. And right now, we're budgeted at about 18.3% of that limitation. So the usage of our capital funds for debt service at this point is low because we have other funding sources that are coming in to help with that, i.e. our impact fees and the sales tax funds as well. And so we'll continue as we build our capital plan to determine, do we have the right balance here? And make sure that we do have the right balance so that we're being responsible with the debt that we continue to take on as a district, and that we're paying it through what we believe is the most expedient funding source in order to do that. But that's where we are right now. So this school district of Lee County budget that you see before you supports 118 schools, almost 100,000 students, the initiative of the state, the district's vision and mission, and is centered on student safety, staff safety, student achievement, and the goals of Envision 2030, the district strategic plan. So as always, our mission, and we hope and believe that we have structured this budget to help all of our schools and all of our departments across the district help to achieve this mission, is to ensure that each student reaches his or her highest personal potential. So we respectfully submit this budget in support of that mission, in support of the students and employees of the Lee County School District, and on behalf of the citizens of Lee County.
Thank you, Dr. Desamore. The next item on the agenda is the public hearing. We will now recess this special school board meeting and open the public hearing to consider the adoption of the tentative proposed millage rates and the tentative budgets for 2022 through 2023. Dr. Bernier, please continue by stating your recommendations.
Madam Chair, members of the board, recommendation number 1, recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the 2022-2023 tentative proposed required local effort millage of 3.309 mils with a proposed amount to be raised of $425,410,802,000. With the RLE millage includes the basic RLE of 3.304 and a prior period adjustment millage of 0.005. Recommendation 2, recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the 2022-2023 tentative proposed basic discretionary millage of 0.748 mils with a proposed amount to be raised of $96,164,183,000. Recommendation number 3, recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the 2022-2023 tentative proposed capital outlay millage of 1.500 with a proposed amount to be raised of $192,842,612. Total millage will equal 5.557 mils with a total amount to be raised of $714,417,597. Total millage rate to be levied is more than the rollback rate. It is an increase in the rollback rate of 17.13%. Recommendation number 4, recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the resolution determining revenues and millages levied and the resolution adopting the tentative millage rates for the fiscal year of 2022-2023. Recommendation number 5, recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the tentative budget and related resolution adopting the tentative budget for the 2022-2023 school year as follows. General operating in the amount of $1,051,816,419. Special revenue budget in the amount of $128,822,171. Debt service budget in the amount of $85,792,884. Capital outlay budget in the amount of $700 million. These numbers are unusual to a man. $700,312,719. Internal service budget in the amount of $168,940,630 for a total tentative budget of $2,135,684,823 or $2,135,684,823. Recommendation number 6, recommend that the Lee County School Board accept the 2022 certification of the taxable value for Lee County, Form DR 420S, and authorize the superintendent to complete and execute the form. Finally, recommendation number 7, recommend that the Lee County School Board schedule a public hearing on the final 2022-2023 millage levies and the final budget for the 2022-2023 school year for Wednesday, September 7th, 2022, at a specially scheduled board meeting to begin at 5:05 p.m. in the Lee County Public Education Center boardroom.
Okay, at this time, the public will be, thank you, Dr. Bernier. At this time, the public will be invited to speak on these matters. The time allowed for comments is 3 minutes per speaker. Is there anyone in the room who would like to address the board regarding the recommended items? Please raise your hand if there is. Is there anyone in the room that would like to address the board regarding these items? Seeing none, I will now close this public hearing and reconvene the special school board meeting of July 26, 2022. The board will now consider each of the superintendent's recommendation. Dr. Bernier, sorry about this. Please restate your recommendations individually, allowing the board the opportunity to vote before moving to the next one. Dr. Bernier, please present
Chair, members
your
of the board,
recommendation.
recommendation number 1, recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the 2022-2023 tentative proposed required local effort millage of 3.309 mils with a proposed amount to be raised of $425,410,802. The RLE millage includes basic RLE of 3.304 and a prior period adjustment millage of 0.005.
Thank you. Board members, you have heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve? Ms. Gittens?
I move we accept the superintendent's recommendation.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. It's been moved by Ms. Gittens, seconded by Ms. Fisher. Any discussion? Ms. Patrica?
I don't know when it's appropriate for me to ask a question on the presentation that we just had, but I do have a question. Can I ask that now?
Yes.
Okay, so how much, and if you don't have this answer right now, Dr. Desmores, you can get back to me, but how much of the increase in the BSA is tied up in mandates, like FRS? Typically, we usually see an increase in BSA, and that's exciting because we can do different things, and then we realize, oh, 11 million of that has to go to FRS contributions that weren't funded by the state. So do you know that, or can you get back to us on that, please?
I can definitely get that exact number back to you in terms of that percentage. We're talking about a little over $200 in the increase in the BSA. I believe it was $214. So we had, yes, an increase in the FRS, which was, I believe, a little over $7 million worth. We had the $15 mandate, and several other things that are in there. So we can come back with a breakdown of exactly how much is related to those types of things that we have to do and what left basically as discretionary.
Awesome, that'd be great, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any, Ms. G?
So I would like to know what was our increase last year to this year? I know it's larger than it was last year, right?
The BSA?
Yes, please.
Yes, it's a $214 increase from last year, the BSA specifically.
Yeah, but what was it last year though that they gave us?
What was
You know that
last year's
amount?
BSA? So, 1 second.
I think 170.
So this year's base student allocation is $45.87. That's a $214 increase. So last year's should have been $43.73.
Right, I just wanted the community to hear that.
Absolutely.
And then the other question I had is how much of our budget is the sales tax? The revenue that we receive?
Of the capital budget or of the total budget?
Of the capital budget, because it's capital, from the sales tax.
I'm going to pull that number for you if you give me just a second.
Oh, you're awesome, thank you.
Okay, so our total capital revenue budgeted for this current fiscal year 23, is $336.9 million, and of that, $108.6 million is attributable to sales tax. So that gives us about a third, but let me give you the exact number.
You said 108 million?
I said 108.6 million, yes, that's correct. So that gives us about 32% of this year's capital revenue attributable to sales tax. Sales tax being budgeted at this point at $108.6 million for the fiscal year 23.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Sorry that took me just a
No,
second.
that's okay.
Ms. Gittens?
This is we're just asking our questions.
Well,
right?
I'm trying to go with the recommendations, but we've just had 2 questions. So if you have a question to ask Dr. Desimore, go ahead.
Just about, yesterday we had, thank you very much. Yesterday we had some discussion about our reserves. And can you state what, I know there's a percentage that we had, the 3% is what we have to have. And that's the 26.7 million, correct?
Correct.
And we had a discussion a few months ago about what the board decided to have. And how much over the 3% did we decide to?
Okay, so when you say you had a discussion a few months ago, I'm not privy to that discussion,
Oh,
but,
okay. Sometime back, we talked about how much we were required to have and what we wanted to have it set at. What is it, what percentage are we having for reserves?
well, I know that specifically, and I'm sorry, I wasn't privy to the discussion a few months ago, but I know historically, what we talked about is, we talk about where we want the reserves to be set. I mean, that was specifically focused on the capital fund reserve, because there is no, for capital funds, there really is no specific requirement, but there's different things that our rating agencies and company and people that are kind of lending us money like to see.
Right.
So I know that in the past, we've had a healthy discussion at the board level of where those capital reserves will lie. And typically, we have talked about somewhere between 7 and 12% of revenue in the capital fund specifically.
Okay.
For the
thank you.
general fund,
Oh.
we haven't, not necessarily pinned down any percentage or any amount specifically for the general fund that the board necessarily wanted to stay around, hover around, or wanted to see. But I think more aptly, it's always a discussion of, so what's the state of the world, right? What's going on? What types of things do we think we might need to address or focus on, or what unknown things might hit us? And then we want to make sure that the budget really is shaped around that. So as far as a specific percentage for general fund, we've not, the board hasn't necessarily set that particular
Right.
mark.
Okay, and thank you. I remember that 7 to 12% was what I was
Yes, ma'am.
looking for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no other discussion, correct? Thank you. Please go ahead and record your vote. Ms. Thomas, do you have everybody's?
Aye. Why it's not coming out?
Good, 7-0, motion passes. Okay, Dr. Bernier, please.
Recommendation number 2. Recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the 2022-2023 tentative proposed basic discretionary millage of .748 mils with a proposed amount to be raised of $96,164,183.
Thank you. Board members, you have heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve? Ms. Ms.
Vaughn.
Vaughn? I was looking at both of you with your hands up.
I move to approve the superintendent's recommendation.
And then seconded by Ms. Morgan?
Correct.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. Mr. Preborn, did you have?
I just wanted to know who motioned and who seconded, I didn't catch.
Okay, it was moved by Ms. Vaughn and seconded by Ms. Morgan.
Thank you.
And 7-0, motion carries. Okay, Dr. Bernier, please, number 3.
Recommendation number 3, we recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the 2022-2023 tentative proposed capital outlay millage of 1.500 with a proposed amount to be raised of $192,842,612. Total millage will equal 5.557 mills, with a total amount to be raised of $714,417,597. The total millage rate to be levied is more than the rollback rate. It is an increase of the rollback rate of 17.13%.
Thank you. Board members, you have heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move that we approve the superintendent's recommendation.
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher, seconded by Ms. Giovanelli. Any discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. Seven zero, motion carries. Dr. Bernier, recommendation number 4, please.
We recommend that the Lee County School Board adopt the resolution determining the revenues and the millages levied and the resolution adopting the tentative millage rates for the fiscal year of 2022-2023.
Thank you. Board members, you have heard the superintendent's recommendation. For number 4, is there a motion to approve?
I move we accept the superintendent's motion.
Thank you, Ms. Gittens. And may I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Moved by Ms. Gittens, seconded by Ms. Fisher. Any discussion?
And Madam Chair, I should have said
sorry?
his recommendation, not his motion, just for the record. I said I move that we
Moved
approve his motion. It should have been his recommendation.
his recommendation. Thank you, Ms. Gittens. Okay. And please record your vote. Seven zero, motion carries. Dr. Bernier, please read recommendation number 5.
The recommendation is that the Lee County School Board adopt the tentative budget and related resolution adopting the tentative budget for the 2022-2023 school year as follows. General operating in the amount of $1,051,816,419. Special revenue budget in the amount of $128,822,171. The debt service budget in the amount of $85,792,884. The capital outlay budget in the amount of $700,312,719. Internal service budget in the amount of $168,940,630 for a total tentative budget of $2,135,684,823.
Thank you. Board members, you have heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve the superintendent's recommendation to adopt the tentative budget and related resolution adopting the tentative budget for the 2022-2023 school year.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Moved by Ms. Morgan, seconded by Ms. Fisher. Any discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. Seven zero, motion carries. Dr. Bernier, please read your recommendations for number 6.
Recommendation is that the Lee County School Board accept the 2022 certification of taxable value for Lee County Form DR 420S and authorize the superintendent to complete and execute the form.
Thank you. Board members, you have heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve?
I'll move that we adopt the superintendent's recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. Ms. Gittens, second? Okay, moved by Ms. Fisher, seconded by Ms. Gittens. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, please record your vote. Okay, 7-0, motion carries. Dr. Bernier, closer. Please read your recommendation for number 7.
Recommendation is that the Lee County School Board schedule a public hearing on the final 2022-2023 millage levies and final budget for the 2022-2023 school year for Wednesday, September 7th, 2022, at a specifically scheduled board meeting to begin at 5:05 p.m. in the Lee County Public Education Center boardroom.
Thank you. Board members, you have heard the superintendent's recommendation. Is there a motion to approve? Ms. Vaughn?
I move that we approve the superintendent's recommendation.
We have a second? Second. Thank you, Ms. G. Okay, any discussion? Seeing no discussion, please record your vote. Okay, next, oops, I'm sorry, I'm ahead of myself. 7-0, motion carries. Thank you, Dr. Bernier. Next on the agenda are comments from the boards, the board attorney and the superintendent regarding these. Ms. Morgan, do you have any comments?
I have none, thank you.
Thank you.
I have none.
Ms. Gittens?
I have none.
Thank you. Ms. Patrica?
No, thank you.
Ms. Giovanelli?
I have none, thank you.
Ms. Fisher?
I look forward to September 7th, 2022.
Thank you.
Adopt the final budget.
Thank you. I have none. Mr. Preborno?
I have none, thank you.
And Dr. Bernier?
Thank you. I have none.
Yeah, I just want to thank Dr. Desmore very much and your team for putting all the work together. Thank you. At this point, having no other business to come before this body and seeing no objection, this meeting is adjourned. I am going to assume this was a special meeting, so I'm not sure if we need to restart